65 degrees, partly cloudy, and we woke up to a little sunshine, but it's clouded over a little bit now. That's why I have some artificial light shining on my face. Not quite enough coming in through the windows for a good picture. You ever thought about titles? You know, there's been a lot of controversy about a man being the head of the home. Men, you know, you're supposed to tell your wives to honor their husbands and to treat him as if he was the Lord. And wives very often have rebelled and said, no, that's my husband is not going to use me as a doormat. Well, certainly scriptures doesn't really mean that the husband is to lord it over his wife. As a matter of fact, it tells him to treat her as a weaker vessel, to love her as Christ loved the church, and that's certainly not a doormat. But what about the term Lord as it applies to God, to Jesus Christ? This dictionary says that Lord means authority or position, dominion, and power over others. I wonder, when we talk about him being Lord, do we really mean that he's Lord of our lives, that he's the authority, he's the one that has dominion over us? Or do we rebel sometimes as a wife rebels against her husband, saying, he's not going to treat me as a doormat, I'm not going to let him lord it over me? It's an interesting story in Exodus chapter 3, when the Lord comes to Moses and begins to tell him his plan to deliver the people of Israel. And Moses responds and says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? In chapter 4, verse 10, he says, I'm not eloquent. And in both cases, he's talking to God. He's talking to the Lord. Was he really Lord over Moses' life? Did God really reveal himself in such a way to Moses that he understood the term Lord? Well, if we go all the way over to chapter 14, verse 13, Moses stands boldly before the entire nation of Israel, with the whole army of the Egyptians closing in on him and the Red Sea to his back. Moses boldly says, do not fear, stand still, see the salvation of the Lord. Not too many months ago, I challenged my Sunday school class here in Landrum to try to find the answer of what happened in those 11 chapters. Actually, 12 chapters or 13 chapters, but just in a short period of time. What took Moses from saying, who am I, and I'm not eloquent, to having such a great confidence and such a boldness and such an eloquence to say, stand still and watch the salvation of the Lord? Then I helped them by saying, you have until next week to find the answer to the question, but you'll find the answer in chapter 6 of the book of Exodus. Well, I was disappointed that only a few had taken the time to go into chapter 6. The following week, I asked the question, did anybody find the answer? Well, there were a couple that did, but I was disappointed out of 12 or 14 men that only a couple had taken the time to see if they could find the answer. And the answer is found in chapter 6. For truly, that's where we see God telling Moses what all of us need to remember. God's on his throne. He is Lord, whether we want him to be or not. You see, in chapter 6, in just 8 verses, chapters 6, verses 1 through 8, chapter 6, verse 2, God says to Moses, Moses, I am the Lord. In chapter 6, verse 6, he says, Moses, I am the Lord. In chapter 6, verse 7, he says, Moses, I am the Lord. In chapter 6, verse 8, he says, Moses, I am the Lord. What did Moses need to remember when the Egyptian army was closing in on him? His back was to the Red Sea, and it appeared there was no way out. He needed to remember that the Lord is the Lord. You may be facing some difficult things today, maybe some difficult things in the future. But if we would just learn from Moses in chapter 6 of the book of Exodus, he's Lord. Now, he's either Lord of all or he's not Lord at all. For you see, you can't interchangeably say he's Lord and then doubt that he's on his throne and can do anything if he can create the heavens and the earth. So today, declare to yourself, remind yourself that it's true. He's on his throne and he is Lord. God bless you and have a great day.